Hi, this is Eric Martin with BoardGameGeek. I am here with Beth Erickson from Z-Man Games. Hi, Beth. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Excellent. We are going to take a look at Pandemic Hot Zone North America, a very timely title that caught some attention when it was first announced. I don't know if you know about the history of the design. You can talk about how this came about and just the
Yes.
coincidental nature of its publication.
Yes, I can talk about that. So this game actually was in development since 2018. It actually started as more of a behind the scenes thing where, we had tossed out the idea of making like a demo version of Pandemic just for retail stores so that they could, let customers try it, see if they would kind of like Pandemic before buying it, even just presenting it to stores to see if they wanted to buy Pandemic to bring it into their stores. And it ended up being so successful that we realized it could actually be a product. And from there, it has turned into a larger thing where we're actually planning to do a whole series of them. North America just happens to be the first.
That's
And,
right.
because it is a focused in map, that's how the name came about, that it is, a particular zone instead of a global thing. And of course, it's North America because it's focused on North America. It was
There we
already
go.
in production when COVID stuff started. We had already hit the go button. So it is just a matter of unfortunate timing, but it still has the elements of Pandemic that people love. You're still trying to work together. You're still trying to cure diseases. It's still a very positive game.
So you mentioned this was a scaled down version, or initially this is how it started out as a scaled down version of Pandemic. We can see that on
Yes.
the map. There are many fewer locations. There's only 3 colors of diseases that we need to worry about. What other differences do we have?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Matt did a great job really streamlining the gameplay. So, regular Pandemic, if you're playing the full base game, can take 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes depending on how much you strategize and talk with your teammates. But this one can be played easily over a lunch break, as a warm up to other games. It pretty much takes 30 minutes. There's a much smaller map. It's zoomed in on North America. There's only 3 diseases instead of 4. In order to find a cure, you only need 4 cards instead of 5. The hand limit is 6 cards instead of 7. You also will not be building research stations. So then the flight action that would let you hop from research station to research station is also gone. Instead, there's a permanent research station just on the board in Atlanta. So if you ever want to find a cure in this game, you have to be in Atlanta to do it.
Okay. Okay. The number of epidemics, you have only 3, no matter the
Yep.
player
And you
count.
will always use those.
Okay. Okay. And then player options. There's 4 roles. It's a 2 to 4 player game. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We did post some solo rules recently on the website. So if someone wants to try solo, they can. But yeah, generally it's a 2 to 4 player game. There are the 4 roles. They are roles that people should recognize if they have played Pandemic.
Okay.
But same thing. Each one has a unique ability. You pick the ones that you would like to use in your game, or randomly shuffle them out. And
Okay.
each version of Hot Zone will have different characters that you'll be able to use. So the next one we're working on will have some different
Oh,
characters.
that's pretty interesting because then, of course, you could just
Mm-hmm.
swap them from whichever game because they are modified
You
a little
could.
bit. I believe. I believe a couple
Yeah.
of them are a little different just based on working specifically with Hot Zone.
Yeah. So there's some minor tweaks that we had to make with some of the abilities, just to make sure that it fit some of the changes that happened with Hot Zone. Most of them are what you are used to. But if you've played Pandemic a lot, just make sure you carefully read the wording on these to make sure you understand this ability.
Okay. So to start, as you said, each player can choose or take one at random. We were starting the setup for a 2 player game. Each player has 3 player cards, and cards are actually
Yep.
face up. I noticed too in season 0, cards are also face up. I don't know if that was just a general change that came about to emphasize the cooperative nature, or
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that people understood, you know, you are working together and there is shared information. You do want to strategize together. So there's not much point in keeping the cards hidden because you're going to want to talk about them. So we just wanted to emphasize that in the rule book. But yeah, leave the cards face up.
Okay. For setup is similar to Pandemic, but like everything else, kind of scaled down.
Yeah, slightly different. So, you know, in regular Pandemic, you would draw 3 cards, put 3 cubes, then another 3 and another 3 for 2 cubes and 1 cubes. In Hot Zone, instead, you only draw 2 and then 2 and 2. So to start setup, you would draw 2 infection cards and put 3 cubes on those 2 cities, which I believe we're starting to do.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 you draw, just get 2 cubes. And the final 2 will get 1 cube. So very similar, just slightly less, because as you mentioned, there's fewer cities on the board. So we want it to be a challenge, but not overwhelmingly so.
Right. Because there are, yes, only 8 cities of each color. It's kind of fascinating reading through the rules and just seeing how it was adapted. And I know Matt does tons of testing, and obviously he has just worked out exactly what will work perfectly with, I don't know, with which lines. So it's kind of amazing just, following along what he's done.
Yeah, he did a great job streamlining it and keeping, you know, the main core elements of Pandemic, but just making it, you know, a little slimmer, more straightforward, removing some of the extra stuff that is in the full base game. And of course, if you want all of that extra stuff, you can totally play the base game. If you just want a quick warm up, or maybe you're trying to introduce Pandemic to someone who isn't as much of a gamer, like this is a good option because it plays quicker. There's a little less complexity to it. It's cheaper. It's only $20. The box is small. You can throw it in a backpack. It's right. Very much like the more portable Pandemic.
It very much is, because it's like you can fit almost four of these inside the Season 0 box.
Yeah, I would not say that Legacy is really a portable Pandemic. That's what right. Hot Zone is.
Hot Zone is. So each player gets a roll as well. I don't know if Nikki wants to choose a roll at random for each player. And then you just start, and like the regular game, you have 4 actions. So I don't know if you lead through the possibilities.
We needed to set up the player deck, which just like in regular Pandemic, you take the player deck after you've taken out the hands for each player.
Yes.
You split those into, in this case, 3 decks, and then shuffle in the epidemic into each of those, because you will use all 3 epidemics. Now, the thing you won't use in your first game, and probably not in your second, are the crisis cards. The crisis cards are a new thing that were added to Hot Zone, and those add extra complexity and new challenges. So those are something that will get shuffled in to the player deck in later games when you think you're ready to tackle a challenge. So instead of using the epidemics as a lever to change complexity, instead you're using the crisis cards as the lever to make something more challenging.
Okay. Which is interesting as well, because it gives a twist. You don't know which effects will be in play, because you can have you shuffle 1 or 2 crisis cards into each third of the deck. There's 7 of them, so not all of them will be used. So you don't even know what's coming or when, and you just have to adapt as things come up. It's, again, just interesting little twist.
It adds a new wrinkle to it for sure.
Okay. And so now we're set up. I don't know if you want to just make suggestions for Nikki or lead her through, or what would be ideal in terms of showing how this game works compared to regular Pandemic.
I cannot read all of the cards because it's small on my screen, but
yes, that's the problem. Hey, there
that
we go.
Helps a bit, yeah. So let's see. We've got the researcher with Chicago, Seattle, and Monterey.
So I guess to some degree, you have similar actions to regular Pandemic. You can walk to an adjacent city. You can spend the card to fly to that city. Or if you're in that city, you spend that card to fly anywhere.
Yeah, and then you can still, do the share knowledge action where you can try and get your card to another person. You have to be in the city that's on that card to do it. But that element is still there because you're still going to need to consolidate and get your cards together so that you can do the cures. You're not too likely to draw them all just on your own. So you do still have to work together and get in the same cities to swap cards.
Okay. All right. Oh, look at that. Very helpful. We have the researcher. We see that. Dispatcher. And so again, right now we have a real assortment of cards in people's hands. So yes,
Yeah.
not much to do. Nikki's mentioning the event.
Yes, event cards. So just like in regular Pandemic, there are event cards. Event cards are something that can be played at any point. They do count against your hand limit, but they are something that you can just play, and usually they're, really nice things that you want to happen. So there's a variety of event cards that'll get mixed into the deck.
Okay. All right. Again, Nikki, I don't know do you want to take actions?
Okay. Here we go.
We believe in you. You got this.
Okay.
I mean, do the solitaire rules differ much other than just playing multiple roles with separate hands? I don't know if you can give an overview of that, Beth.
It's been a little bit since I have read the solitaire rules. Let me pull them up.
That's right. I know that's always the hazard with a publisher where I dealt with this 6 months ago.
Yep.
And now we have to refresh.
So in the solo rules, you would not use the researcher role, since that is something that very much is with another player. But you are able to actually use the other 3 role cards. And you are able to use all 3 of those role cards from a single hand of cards. So then you would have one hand in front of you, but on any character's turn, you would be able to utilize those cards.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it seems like a very different nature of the game. Okay. So again, so Nikki moved to Miami. And then what? And then what?
What? Then what is what?
I don't know.
What is what?
Well, I mean, so while you're in Atlanta, you could remove a disease cube. And then so you want to prevent outbreaks.
So let's go 1, 2. Burp. Or should I get rid of 2? Is that the normal?
I don't know.
3? Let's do that. So I got rid of 2, and then I moved 1.
And then you would have one more action left because you have 4 actions.
Well, I can move to Havana and wait
For next turn.
for next turn.
And then you'll...
And then you will draw 2 player cards.
Okay. 1, 2.
And add the rest to your hand.
Ta-da.
And again, the player card limit is 6 in this, not 7.
All right.
So anytime that you get above 6 is when you would have to reevaluate and discard down or play event cards to get down to the 6 card limit.
All right. Well,
so now that your player cards have done, you would need to infect.
Oh, infect. Sorry. Oop.
Oh.
Infect.
So right now the infection rate should be at 2, I believe. So you'll draw 2 cards and put 1 cube in each city that you draw.
Okay. That is Miami and New Orleans. Okay.
Okay. And so like Pandemic, this has the loss conditions if you run out of cubes.
Yep.
If you can't place cubes on the board when you need to, you lose. If you run out of the player deck, you lose. Outbreaks is definitely scaled down. A 4th outbreak and you lose. That is much tighter.
It is, yeah. So you can lose by outbreaks. Outbreaks are still a thing. So obviously, you draw a card and there's 3 cubes in that city already. If you need to place a 4th, that's when the outbreak happens. You move that down on the track, and then the disease will actually outbreak to all the connected cities.
Okay, in a similar manner. It's fascinating to see this because, yes, as you mentioned, the $20 price point makes it seem like an ideal entry for people who have not played. And yes, it's sort of scaled down and it's interesting that, like, this is 12 years after the original game. And now, is this the ideal entry point? I mean, so you mentioned, it came out as kind of an accidental product. And
Yeah,
right now,
I mean, the idea of it was to create a demo version. You know, similar to how like Ticket to Ride has now done New York and London, which are kind of smaller scaled down versions. You know, this was kind of created in a similar vein. And then we just realized that why shouldn't this exist as a real product? You know, there are plenty of people that do want an easy lunch break game, or a game that they can teach to their parents or non-gamer friends, or just the one that they can like keep in their car at all times and pull it out when they want to play a game. Like, there's different reasons why people would want this. And it's, you know, some people are always going to want big Pandemic, some people are always going to want legacy Pandemic, but some people are going to want Hot Zone and something quicker and smaller. So we wanted to offer that as an option for people.
Okay. And I know actually the small Ticket to Ride games also started the same way, where they were going to do a demo version for stores, and then it just became a thing.
Yep, it was the same thing. And, you know, sometimes you just realize that a good idea is a good idea, and there's no reason not to open it up to make it public. You know, it doesn't have to be a thing that stays behind closed doors just for industry people. And, you know, the great thing about the Hot Zone series, it's going to be a series. You know, we are currently working on the next one. And Matt and Steve and, you know, our dev team, like, they've had a lot of discussions about ways to make each one its own thing. Like, it will still be Pandemic. It will still have, of course, the base elements. But each one's going to have its own twist, and each one will have different characters. So, you know, if you want, if you really love a certain region on the map, like, there will be a Hot Zone for you. And if you want to get more than one and like mix and match them together, like, that's an option.
Okay, so Nikki got a epidemic here, right? And it's sort of standard rules: increase the infection rate, draw a card from the bottom of the deck.
Yep, gets 3 cubes.
Get 3 cubes, and then shuffle, and then put everything on top.
Yep, and then you will draw, you know, of course, the infection like normal based on whatever the new infection rate is, which I believe at this point should still be 2.
Okay. So as she carries on with that, I had a user ask about whether the Hot Zone games will be able to be combined. Now, you mentioned they'll have different roles, so you can swap roles from one game to another. I imagine with pawns, so the pawns will be different colors as well. But can you actually combine them into regions? Can I have North and South America in one game? Or can they be combined that way?
So I know that we are working on some mix and match elements. I don't know all of the ways that they can be combined yet, but there will be some things. So if you have more than one copy, if you have North America and 2 other regions, there will be some elements you can mix together. I'm not sure on all of them yet, but I know that is something that we are working on during the development of the rest of the series.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
How many
Outbreak
is it
in
for an
Seattle.
outbreak? Yeah.
No.
So when there's an outbreak, it's just 1 cube in each connecting city.
Okay.
All right. So this will look good. Another user also asked whether there's a plan to make a Pandemic app to help set up the cards. Now, of course, that's one of the challenges. Yeah, so the player deck, of course, takes a little bit to set up in terms of giving. Remember, and the Legacy Season 0 rules even make a joke of it that you will forget to hand out cards before you shuffle in the problem cards, which are not epidemics in that game. But
we've all done it. There's no shame. All of us have done it.
Yes. So I don't know if there's ever been a thought for a Pandemic app that would handle that. I don't know if each player would have their own phone, and then I get dealt my cards, and someone else gets their cards.
Yeah.
And that.
That's certainly an interesting idea. It's not one that has come up in discussions I've been a part of, but that's a very interesting idea. I will pass that on to the team.
Okay. And Hot Zone, is it available in all retail stores, or is it a Target exclusive at the moment?
It's not Target exclusive. They got it first, so it's been on their shelves for a couple weeks, but it actually will be available widely tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So
and we do have on our website, there's a free full print and play version. So if people want to give it a try, they can. And we have also made a tabletop simulator mod of this available as well, also for free. And that one, it's not just a demo. You can play the full game. All the components are there. So, if people want to give it a shot, or, at least with the tabletop simulator mod, they can play with people that are in different locations. If you want to play with a friend that's somewhere else, that is totally an option. And we want people to have that experience.
Okay. I always find it interesting with that. I mean, with the print and play option, of course, it's a $20 retail. I've had friends in the past who sort of did their own version of a game that was a $20 retail and ended up costing them way more than $20 to, they went to the craft store and then they were painting things and they were.
That's totally true. I would probably just buy the game myself because $20 and then you have everything you need is way easier for me, but sometimes I'm lazy. But, for anyone who wants to give it a try before they play the game, like it's available, it's there. It does take a little bit of time to cut things. So if you want to put forth that effort, you totally can. But it's also $20, so you can go buy it real quick.
Cut carefully so you don't have information on the cards. I remember I cut Toronto in a little bit and then dip it. I know Toronto's coming. I could see it on top of the deck.
You're like, I know what's coming in the deck.
So Beth, we got another minute. I don't know if there's anything else to mention, whether in the pandemic line or just in general.
So a couple different things that we're working on there. So one of the things that we've done is we've had some of the standalone games, like Fall of Rome was our last one. And we've kind of rebranded those as pandemic system games. And we'll be continuing making more of those. And the reason we call them pandemic system games is because they have the gameplay mechanics of pandemic, usually with a twist. But the theme is something different. So it may not be like the modern day science. It might be historical. It might be fantastical. And that's something that we're really excited to explore more of. And we are working on another system game. I just can't say what it is yet.
Okay. Well, I know initially those were tied to the World Championship and the location of that final event, but that was yearly. And I know developing each of those games in a year, it was highly stressful. I've talked to Matt about that.
Yeah. So it had started out as something tied to the Pandemic Survival Tournament series, which is our organized play program, which is a tournament format for a cooperative game, which is actually a really interesting, it's an interesting twist on pandemic, and it's a lot of fun. And we'll be continuing the tournament games, once things are more open to events again. We postponed this year's competitive season, but yeah, originally the games were tied to each year of the survival tournaments, and so it was just cranking out these games one after the other, and like they all have their own merits and their own gameplay elements, and I think that we're all very proud of what they have been, but we kind of took a hard look at it and realized maybe we should just make them their own thing, give us more freedom, give Matt more freedom, and give us the time that we can really fully dedicate to making it a really good solid standalone without having the pressures of tying it to the competitive season.
So, and mention along those lines, Matt Leacock has published rules for running a pandemic survival tournament on your own if you are interested on his blog. So you can always download those rules and give it a try.
Use Zoom, and there's instructions to use Zoom and follow the survival rules for a scenario, and you can totally play with your friends. We are also running just a casual tournament on Saturday from 4 to 6 Eastern time. I believe there's still some tickets left. So if someone even just wants to try it, we'll have another Z-Man staff member running an event. And that'll kind of give you a taste of what it is to play a competitive cooperative game.
All right. Thank you very much, Beth, for an overview of Pandemic Hot Zone North America. As you say, first in a series of games coming from Z-Man Games. Thank you very much for your time.